Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Aaron Dykes, your host for tonight. This is Wednesday, April 4th, 2012, and we'll be right back with the news.
Tonight on the INFOWARS Nightly News, the Obama administration is preparing to sue Arizona County Sheriff Joe Arpaio, claiming that his department violated civil rights laws by improperly targeting Latinos to crack down on illegal immigrants. Could this be payback for the Arpaio investigation into Obama's fake birth certificate? Then, new research reveals that whooping cough outbreaks are higher among children already vaccinated, but the mainstream media spins the story to protect Big Pharma. What on earth is going on in Wisconsin? Yet another town reports strange booms and flashes of light. But don't be alarmed, the federal government says there is nothing to worry about. And finally, after exposing climate fascist Carrie Norgard, YouTube censors the Alex Jones channel. Alex gets an update from Mark Moreno on the Green Police and their continuous attacks on our free speech. Plus, more of today's top headlines, and Jason Burmis joins us live via video Skype. It's 1776 worldwide.
And so now we'll get into our top story. The government is targeting Sheriff Joe Arpaio for his targeting of Latinos, an ongoing battle supposedly just over illegal immigration and the questions of whether they're enforcing things properly. You see his high-profile crackdown on illegal immigrants has drawn ire, and on and on and on. Of course, it has nothing to do with the fact that Arpaio has a cold case posse investigating the president's very own providence, the authenticity of his birth certificate documents, or of other documents like that selective service card that is apparently fraudulent, according to what they found in their investigation. Of course, there's been a lot of back and forth over all these factors, and you've got basically Arizona going against the federal government on so many issues. Don't forget to check out, of course, our exclusive interview with Sheriff Joe Arpaio, members of his cold case posse, people like Jerome Corsi, the extreme birth certificate investigator who has so much info that we put out last week. But meanwhile, you've got Homeland Security now wanting to grant illegal aliens unlawful presence waivers. So it's not just about the laws on the books in regards to illegal immigration, as imperfect as they are. You've got the feds actively wanting to bring in more illegal aliens, give them waivers as they crack down on Americans, put them under suspicion for ordinary behavior and suspected activities of various kinds. Now, in other news, vaccine failure is admitted as you have whooping cough outbreaks admittedly tied to children who did receive the vaccinations in question and not tied to children who were exempted from the vaccinations. Mike Adams has the report. For several years, he says national news has maintained that many vaccines actually cause the very infectious diseases they claim to prevent. Measles vaccines, for example, actually cause measles. Flu shots actually cause an increase in susceptibility to the flu. And now we have an open admission precisely to the point. He, of course, cites directly from a Reuters report where they cite a spike in cases around the Kaiser Permanente in San Rafael, the largest whooping cough outbreak in more than 50 years. And despite their expectations, it was not tied to unvaccinated kids. Instead, they were surprised that the majority of cases were in fully vaccinated children, and it caught their attention. And it goes on from there. But of course, they still tell you in the same report to take the vaccine anyway, even though they admit there's been no long-term testing for effectiveness or for safety. And they basically admit that it's not going to work in the long term. You've got other people like Alan Phillips, the attorney, who's shown where you have something like a 15% ineffective rate from vaccinated children and only a 1% kind of outbreak rate among those who refuse to get the vaccines. So all the numbers are cooked. It's just the government wants to push these vaccines on you. I really doubt they're actually that concerned about containing the disease themselves. What they want is compliance with the system. Meanwhile, compliance with the system continues to show that those in authority are the greatest dangers. That's at least if you focus on the TSA situation. station. Now a screener has been caught throwing hot coffee in a pilot's face after the pilot asked her to stop using the N-word and to refrain from profanity in their conversation because of all the children around and the general professional ethics that normally would apply to almost any profession, but somehow not to TSA. So this agent became very upset when pilot Steve Trivet began to lecture him and threw the coffee. Letitia L. was reportedly arrested and charged with harassment and misdemeanor assault. And it just goes on with the larger God complex of the TSA agents who think that a uniform gives them power, that they're personally charged with this rush of energy, and that the uniform they wear doesn't just reflect an overbearing system. You know how that story goes. Rape cases, stealing from luggage, smuggling drugs, child kidnapping, trafficking, and all the rest of it. Scalding reply at JFK was the headline in the New York Post. That's an interesting headline. Turning to other types of spying on the public and putting them through the rigmarole, even Congress wants to know what the NSA is doing with the $2 billion Utah Spy Center. You saw the recent headlines, Wired Magazine and all the other big publications about how nothing will be secret anymore. All the public's data will basically be run through this big system. One senior intelligence official formerly involved with the project going on at the Utah Data Collection Center said that this is more than just a data center. It's a code-breaking megalopolis, the likes of which the world has never seen. And of course, it's already been admitted that through the massive amounts of data that we give the government and the private agencies online and that they take from us without asking, they're going to be linking financial information, stock trades, business deals, personal phone calls, confidential communications, along with legal documents, foreign and military diplomatic secrets, and everything. It'll all be tied to your name or to your various user identities online or in the private sector, whatever the case may be in the physical world. Anyway, General Keith Alexander, the current head of the National Security Agency, the NSA, also the current head of U.S. Cyber Command, testified before Congress last week. He denied. What did he deny? He denied the facility would be spying on American citizens, claimed they don't even have the capability to spy on citizens, and they're not authorized to do so anyway. It's pretty clear, though, that they do have that capability. It's all here in Robert Johnson's report in the Business Insider and the other sources. One thing they admittedly do is where they have a mandate restriction, just like the CIA, where it says you can't spy on Americans. Well, they outsource it to foreign governments they have alliances and partnerships with, and they spy on Americans, and then they secretly share the data or things are accidentally linked, and on and on. General Keith Alexander, of course, is one to keep an eye on. He's been to the past 4 or 5 Bilderberg meetings without fail. They've had cybersecurity on the agenda for the past several years without fail. He's certain to be there again this year, and you can bet that shutting down the freedom of the internet will be on the agenda, as well as will be the unfolding surveillance agenda as we discuss here. Meanwhile, in WorldNet Daily, Nat Hentoff discusses how Obama's NSA is close to knowing all about us. Of course, they got Obama in the headline, but they go on to admit that no matter who is the commander-in-chief, this spying is getting really out of control. But most recently, the GAO's a Government Accountability Project has uncovered that Attorney General Eric Holder, a favored official now, has publicly declared new guidelines that will permit the federal counterterrorism investigators to collect, search, and store data about Americans who are not suspected of terrorism or anything, but they're going to be looking for suspicious patterns. And what is suspicious? What do they suspect Americans of even doing? Well, that's classified, says this report, but we basically know. We've had the MIAC report, we've had the Homeland Security reports, and all the other reports mixed in from years past and the past several years, just proving that political activity is enough to have you considered a potential terrorist. Being a returning veteran is enough for you to be classified a potential terrorist, and everything in between, lemonade stands and all the rest of it. You've seen the headlines, and it's clear when they track this amount of data, they're going to apply it to society in general because they want to track mass patterns, but they have to have an excuse. So terrorism is an easy throwaway. You don't have to get specific. You can't give away the details because it's classified, and you can just spy on everyone. And they begin well, they didn't even uncover the NSA till 1975 when Frank Church, who gave his name to the Church Committee that in part investigated the CIA and the JFK assassination, became very concerned about it and its capability to end privacy forever in American society, to where there would be no hiding from the kind of data being collected. Once complete, the Utah data center, the thing we're talking about concurrently, is expected to be fully operational by September 13. It will be the last link in the chain of the electronic concentration camp that surrounds us, said Rutherford.org, who's been tracking this recent situation. So it's just incredible the amount of data they put together, the kind of spying that's going on, and how far things have gone. And Jason Burmis, of course, is coming up later to discuss other aspects of our completely eroding privacy. You remember, of course, when Michael Hayden, who was at the same time director of the CIA and director of the NSA, bold-facedly told a reporter that no, the Fourth Amendment doesn't say you have to have a warrant. No, the Fourth Amendment only says reasonable. No, it doesn't say probable cause. It doesn't say any of that, even though the exact text was quoted to him, and he surely knows what's in the Bill of Rights, which is on paper precisely to contain government's overreach of powers. And but that's all being pissed away, isn't it? Meanwhile, another Wisconsin town reports strange booms and flashes of lights. Baraboo in Wisconsin, a little more than 100 miles south of Clintonville, where other strange booms were seen last week. It also happened in Montello, Wisconsin, all within a close proximity. And at least in Baraboo, and I believe in the other cities, they've checked the patterns for anything in the weather that could have caused it. They've contacted the national, local, and state weather services. They don't see anything that would have caused these odd booms that were, in fact, in the Clintonville case, caught on camera. And you've got the chief of police in Baraboo saying, we don't know if we have a Clintonville going on here or what, but basically that it is strange. People saw a large flash of lights accompanying the boom, and it's just not weather related. We don't know, of course, what's going on, but there are a number of alternative explanations that could be suspected. I was surprised to read that CO2 sequestration could be a possible explanation. I'd like to know more about that. But also, of course, we know fracking has become a very controversial but widespread practice where they tap into the ground to try to extract the natural gas. That has been blamed on some small and medium-sized earthquakes, as, of course, has been HAARP, the high-frequency active auroral research program, which has a lot of criticism and people trying to monitor it and figure out what's going on. May also be something like secret underground military tunneling. But what we know is if it is one of those explanations or something else, they're not going to tell us what's going on. But again and again, where seemingly bizarre explanations have been put forward, many of them prove to be at least plausible, even if you can't link it to a smoking gun. It'll be interesting to see what is going on in Wisconsin, what kind of secret things are going on there, since it's clearly nothing above board. Meanwhile, in financial news, CNBC.com reports why the Fed will intervene if stocks fall too far. Mr. Bernanke and former Fed Chair Alan Greenspan made it clear that the stock market is in the transmission mechanism for monetary policy, said Quincy Crosby, chief market strategist at Prudential Annuities. They know a stronger shock in the market feeds into a stronger economy and feeds into investor confidence. But basically, it breaks down to how since the 2008 financial crisis, almost $3 trillion have been put on the Fed's balance sheets, and through QE1 and QE2 and the silent but deadly QE3s ongoing, they've been extending market liquidity to investors. That's been ricocheted and projected into the stock market. And really, does the stock market reflect reality at all? It's just this market confidence tool to keep the public from freaking out, which is why they may continue to send those signals, even though they've said